This is a special Tuesday edition of PFT PM. I've been toying with the idea of doing PFT PM once a week during the off season, and we've been thinking about doing it on Tuesday afternoon. So it's Tuesday afternoon, at least I think it is. Let's go ahead and do a full episode in lieu of one video after another, which we did on Monday as the news was coming fast and furious. Today kind of slowed down until it didn't. The thing that spurred me to come down here to the Olive Garden restaurant alternate set. And this is something I noticed over the weekend in an item from Rich Cimini of ESPN, who was looking at all of the various options that the Jets would have at quarterback. And they're clearly looking, and I knew they were looking for a veteran bridge 1 or 2 year option while they continue their never-ending reset at the position. And Cimini mentioned the possibility of a Geno Smith reunion. And Cimini mentioned that a year ago, when Smith was available, the Jets had high grades on Geno Smith. So I thought that was good enough to pull it out and turn it into an article and look at all of the issues that would arise from a possible Geno reunion. And lo and behold, it's happened. The Jets acquiring Geno Smith from the Raiders for the old 6-7, and I don't mean to do it that way. I know that thing's over now, but it's a 6-7 flip of draft picks. The Raiders get 6th rounder this year. The Raiders send Geno Smith and a 7th rounder to the Jets. Reportedly, the contract is going to be adjusted, restructured, whatever. We'll see what it ultimately is. He was due to make $18.5 million fully guaranteed from the Raiders, this year. And another $8 million was going to be fully guaranteed as of Friday. Now it's going to be different. And look, is it impossible that the Raiders won't be paying some of that money? I don't know. They were staring at $18.5 million if they cut him, minus whatever he made elsewhere. Now they're apparently off the hook, but we'll see. The bottom line is they've realized something. They've gotten some back-end benefit to a guy that they acquired last year for a 3rd-round pick that went to the Seahawks. They paid him $40 million last year, and they were due to pay another $18.5 this year. So it's a win for the Raiders to find a landing spot, and it's a product of calling around and looking and trying to find a team looking for a quarterback, and the Jets comfortable with bringing back Geno. 2nd-round pick all the way back in 2013. He was the starting quarterback for 2 years. That ended not because of bad performance. It ended because he got his jaw broken in the locker room by former teammate IKN and Pauly. Remember that? The sucker punch heard round the world. And he was out for weeks. He was a backup through the 2016 season, and then he just kind of bounced around the NFL. Eventually, and he does have the distinction on his resume of being the guy for whom Eli Manning was once benched, if you remember that, during the latter days of Eli's career. Eventually, Geno Smith resurfaced in Seattle as the starter after Russell Wilson was traded to the Broncos. And last year, it was as simple as the way his 3-year contract was structured, the cap number forced a new deal. He wanted too much money, and the Seahawks decided, we'll just trade him. And, go sign Sam Darnold, and the rest is history. So the history for Geno with the Jets, it may be ancient history. You're going to have to hope the fan base warms up to the idea of Geno being the starter, and we'll see what the final numbers are financially for Geno, but clearly he had to be on board with this because he agreed to some sort of a contract adjustment. He could have said, no, I'm not doing anything. My contract is what it is. Do with it what you will. So he came to some sort of an agreement, and what a team pays a quarterback reflects how the team views the quarterback. So I'm assuming he's coming back to play. I'm assuming Justin Fields is going to be released. He's due to make $10 million guaranteed this year from the Jets, and Geno's the guy. Time will tell, but I don't see this deal as being anything other than a move to get that, because I know they were looking for the short-term veteran, and that would be Geno Smith. So he'll be back with the Jets. Fireman Ed may not be happy. Oh, well, can't be any worse than what you've had, Fireman Ed. And I don't look at last year as an indictment on Geno Smith. Some do. I don't. He didn't have anything around him. And the Raiders deluded themselves last year. Maybe that's a product of the unbridled enthusiasm possessed both by Billy Mumphrey and Pete Carroll. They thought the Raiders were going to be better than they were, and it was a train wreck. I don't pin it on Geno. Geno can still play, and now he gets a chance to pick up where he left off right before he took a fist to the jaw in August of 2015. So Geno back to the Jets, and another veteran quarterback is spoken for as both free agency gets going and Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern approaches, when we're going to see the official release of guys like Kyler Murray and Kirk Cousins. And I've seen some talk that like the Cardinals are in some way doing Kyler Murray wrong because they haven't released him yet. Everybody knows he's going to be available. It doesn't matter if he's not yet. Everybody knows. And surely teams are talking to his agent. And I wouldn't be shocked if there isn't a deal in someone's back pocket waiting until 4:01 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday to accelerate and finalize and move forward. All right, we'll move forward to another deal that happened, and this one broke right around the time the Geno Smith news landed. Romeo Doubs, the Packers receiver, signing with the New England Patriots. 4 years, $70 million. It's not an earth-shattering deal, $17.5 million per year. They had released Stephon Diggs. Doubs has had some impressive performances over his time in Green Bay. It just wasn't something the Packers decided they wanted to continue. And look, general observation that I make during free agency is this. If the team that has had a guy in the building for 4 years decides it's time to move on, that in and of itself is a little bit of a red flag. It's possible the guy's overpricing himself, but it's a little bit of a red flag. For any guy, just generally speaking, if he's available after 4 years with one team, there's something about that organization, something about that relationship, something about that player, something that just doesn't justify a continuation. And before you sign the guy, you better be damn sure you understand why the current team decided not to keep him. And it could be as simple as money. But for the same reason that we look at the Dolphins and say, well, we know why they signed Malik Willis. Jeff Hafley was in Green Bay for the last 2 years when Willis was there. John Eric Sullivan was in Green Bay the last 2 years while Malik Willis was there. Okay, where were the Dolphins in the pursuit of Romeo Doubs? Where were the Cardinals? Matt LaFleur, pick up the phone, talk to Mike. Hey, Mike, we can't really afford him here, but this may be a guy you want to look at. So he's going to a stranger, and I haven't reviewed all the coaching tentacles in New England to see if there's anybody there who may have direct experience with Romeo Doubs, but him not staying with the Packers and the Dolphins or the Cardinals not pursuing, as far as we know, Romeo Doubs, it's just a little something to pay attention to. But hey, in Vrabel we trust. The Patriots, Diggs out, Doubs in, and leads to the next topic. A.J. Brown could still end up in New England. I mentioned this today on PFT Live. I've been communicating with someone who insists that the Eagles have to trade A.J. Brown this year. Based upon the way they do their contracts. They do annual option bonuses with voidable years, cash over cap. And what it does, it creates situations where you have these big cap numbers as the contracts mature, and it makes it very hard to trade or cut a player because it sparks a significant dead cap charge. And next year, 2027, the Eagles get jammed up. That's what this person has told me. They get really jammed up on their cap. And it would be advantageous to get A.J. Brown off the books now. Now, before Jalen Phillips was signed by the Panthers, the thought was, hey, you know what? The Eagles have to make this trade, but they have to wait until after June 1 to do it. Because you can't do a post-June 1 designation trade. You can only do 2 players who are post-June 1 designation releases. So you got to wait until after June 1. And we've seen teams do that. Wait, just wait. June 2 rolls around, do the trade. And reduce the cap charge. And what you do at that point, just so everyone understands, whatever the proration is on the guy's contract for this year, signing bonus, restructuring bonuses, anything that's been spread over multiple years. If you do it after June 1, you only take what's on the books for this year. Everything else hits the next year. If you do it before June 1, everything from future years accelerates into the current year. So Phillips not staying would allow the Eagles to do it pre-June 1. It creates more flexibility this year from a cap standpoint if the Eagles wait to trade Brown until after June 1. So there's a belief that not only do they want to, but they have to. This isn't the Eagles seriously intending to keep A.J. Brown around. There's a belief that the ship has sailed, and it's just a question of how they go about severing the relationship via a trade to happen either before or after July 1, or June 1, excuse me. And it could be, you're going to have suitors emerge once free agency slows down to something less than a trickle, and we haven't addressed our depth chart at receiver. Maybe we need to get in on this, or if it is going to be a post-June 1 thing, see where you are after the draft. See where it is. See where it stands. Hell, there could be a team that trades one of its own receivers during the draft and then has a need for A.J. Brown. Either way, there's a belief in some circles that it's not a matter of if, but when A.J. Brown is traded by the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, that's something that we all should be keeping an eye on. Now, last topic, and this is going to be a fairly short episode of PFT PM. If I do them on Tuesdays, they'll be at least a half hour, maybe a little bit longer. But for now, got to get back to work. You never know what else is going to break. You never know what else you're going to be chasing, writing on, copy, paste, snark, comment, etc. The last thing, and this is something I haven't had time to get to because there's so much else going on, but the court hearing was scheduled for March 9. So what do you do? March 9, Monday, that was the day that the appeal of the outcome of the Sunday ticket class action antitrust lawsuit went to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit for oral argument. And we've addressed this some in the past. Here's a quick refresher. Whenever you get your final outcome at a federal district court, the next level is one of the various courts of appeals. There's one for every grouping. There's 12, 13 courts of appeal circuits. Different states are in each one. West Virginia's in the Fourth Circuit. California's in the Ninth Circuit. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals previously had resurrected the Sunday ticket lawsuit after it was initially filed and dismissed, thrown out of court. Nothing here. You got nothing. Sorry, it's out. Court of Appeals said to the district court, sorry, it's back in, it's back on, and it went forward, and it went to a trial. And remember, the verdict against the NFL was $4.7 billion. It would have been multiplied by 3 under the federal antitrust laws. But before it could get to that, the judge threw out the whole verdict, not because of a finding that the plaintiffs had failed to prove liability. There's 2 elements of a case on the civil side, liability and then damages. What the judge found was the damages formula, the damages evidence, the way that the plaintiffs proved their financial harm to the jury, that was flawed and that had to be rejected. Now, the judge could have done that before the trial, but he didn't. He waited until after, and he threw out the whole $4.7 billion. So, yesterday, and here's what happens. You show up for the oral argument, and you find out who the judges are going to be. And it's luck of the draw. And they got 3 judges who had been nominated to the court by Democratic presidents. And look, I know this triggers people, but it's the truth. Anybody that practices law, civil law, knows this. You get a federal judge nominated by a Republican president, very good chance that person is going to naturally favor the interests of business. Not just right now, but through any prior decisions, the body of work that this judge has created, the opinions they write, the orders they issue. Cumulatively, it points to a pro-business philosophy. And the law is very malleable. It's not a formula. It is a maze that has many pathways through the walls. You get a judge who was nominated by a Democratic president, more likely to be pro-individual. It's just the way it is. Some people don't want to hear that. I don't care. It's the way it is. So, the plaintiffs, in this case against the NFL, drew for the appeals hearing. 3 judges nominated by Democratic presidents. That's good news. Before you even start, that's good news. And the account at Sports Business Journal from Ben Fisher points to a couple of the judges asking some of the kind of pointed questions that if you're in the courtroom, if you're at the table, if you're waiting to answer questions, or if you're standing there trying not to sweat through your suit, you can tell by the questions where the judges are kind of coming from. And the end result is, doesn't look good for the NFL. Now, that doesn't mean the full $4.7 billion is going to be reinstated. We could see a new trial on damages and damages only, with some sort of adjustment to the way that the formula is determined for the jury to consider what the damages are. But this won't be a situation where the jury gets to decide yes or no, the law was violated. The law was violated. The way the NFL structures, prices, and handles the Sunday ticket package is a violation of federal antitrust law, period. And it's continuing. It's continuing. They're just waiting for the reckoning. Let's make as much money as we can, and we'll just wait for the reckoning. Kind of like gambling, but that's a different topic. So we could have a new trial on damages. We could have something. We could have anything. And the NFL will fight and scratch and claw as much as it can. This thing could linger in courts for years. Meanwhile, the Sunday ticket package will continue unchanged until the league has to change it. But the fundamental problem continues to be this. The league has deliberately insisted on a high price for Sunday ticket so that people will be more inclined to say, you know, I live in Pittsburgh. I'd like to watch all the Dolphins games. I don't want to pay whatever the price is, $500 a year, just so I can watch the Dolphins games that are on Sunday afternoon. I'll just watch whatever's on the local Fox and CBS affiliates. And that price was specifically set to create a balance. We want this to work for the Sunday ticket provider. Used to be DirecTV, now it's YouTube TV. And we want this to work for CBS and Fox. They hated Sunday ticket. They resent everything about it. They have to turn over their feeds from their nationwide games to Sunday ticket. And in each market, they lose viewers from CBS and Fox to Sunday ticket. So the NFL is not allowed to do that. That's the thing. I mean, the NFL created a way to have its cake and eat it, but it's not allowed to collectively come together and lean on, dictate to the Sunday ticket provider what the price is going to be. The provider should be able to decide whatever it wants to decide. You know, there was evidence in that case that Apple came in with a proposal the last time that Sunday ticket was up for bid. And I think there was a suggestion of just including it in the cost that people are already paying for Apple TV Plus, I think it is. I have it. I should know what it is. I think that's it. So the NFL mandating and dictating to the Sunday ticket provider what the price is going to be, that created the problem. And one of these days, that problem is going to be solved. But the case has already been around like 10 years. Who knows? Maybe it'll be another 10 years before we finally figure this out. If the NFL ultimately faces a significant verdict, it's going to be appealed. It's going to be pushed. It's going to end up at the Supreme Court. We don't know what the Supreme Court will do. First, they have to take it up, and then they would have to decide on it. But all of this takes time. In civil litigation, the wheels of justice sometimes move very, very slowly. The system at times is overwhelmed. There's a lot of cases. It's just there's delay that is baked into every stage of the proceedings. So, for a case that went to trial in June, July of 2024, we're finally at the point here in March of 2026 where there was a hearing on the appeal filed by the plaintiffs. Now we wait for the ruling. And that ruling, if it goes against the NFL, depending upon exactly what it says and what it requires the lower court to do, that's when it's going to get very interesting. And when it goes back to the lower court, it won't go back to the judge who's already shown hostility to the damages calculation, because that judge has since retired. So we'll see what happens. But it's a problem for the NFL. And I guess it was good for the NFL that it hit yesterday, because there's plenty of other news going on and we largely didn't notice it. And as I said, I haven't even had time to write about it. I hope to later today, but it's something to pay close attention to, because in the end result, the good news for consumers, you may be able to get out-of-market games for a lot less than what you're currently paying. And maybe you'll be able to get the out-of-market games only of the teams you want to watch without having to buy the whole thing. Pay that one big flat rate to only watch one game a weekend on the weekends that your favorite team, the team you want to watch, isn't in prime time. So that's where it stands. It's a problem for the NFL. It's not going away. And it could become a significant problem again, a multi-billion-dollar problem for the NFL. All right. That's it for today. That was simple. 20 minutes or thereabouts. We'll try to do this most Tuesdays. I don't want to say every Tuesday. I don't want to write any checks I can't honor. I can't honor this, though. You'll find new content regarding free agency, the start of the new league year on Wednesday, around the clock at profootballtalk.com. And as always, weekday mornings, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern, NBCSN, Peacock, and SiriusXM 85. You'll see us there for PFT Live. Thanks for some of your time. We'll talk to you again real soon. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.